established OneLayer as a dedicated solution to private LTE and 5G networks, not something that's supposed to solve all of the problem that has to do with LTE and 5G and how the mobile network operators were using these type of networks. And one of the things that we've seen is that when we talked to enterprises, their mindset was always about the end device. Because in the end, they have a device that they're connecting into their OT network, and they want to better understand what is the connected device rather than what is the SIM inside that device. So every time we had conversations with them, they were talking in applications, they were talking in user equipment. That's the type of discussion they were used to from just standard, IP networks. And as we discussed more and more, this very much affected our approach, because we said, rather than being SIM-centric, and if you go to a lot of dashboards, for example, Nokia dashboards, Ericsson dashboard, or even Verizon and AT&T, oftentimes it's like a list of SIMs and then all the information that relates to a SIM. With OneLayer, we're very much device first. So every time you have the SIM plugged into any device in the network, we'll create a new profile page for a device. So everything originates from the device, every anomaly is associated with the device, every piece of information is immediately correlated to that device. This is how we operate. One of the things we see most often, because of the nature of the device ecosystem, there's a lot of devices in our deployments that are actually primarily cellular routers. I mean, not necessarily embedded LTE modem, but they use companies such as Cisco, GE, 4RF, Semtech that connect other devices into the network. And very early on, this became a very big deal for OneLayer, because when we talk about visibility, we don't stop at the SIM level. It's crucial to understand, of course, this is the number of CPEs that I have in my network, but from the customer point of view, they want to know, well, what's behind that CPE? Is this an automated guided vehicle? Is this a PLC, a laptop? And oftentimes that's crucial for their authentication, because they really want to understand that what's connected behind the router is what they had in mind, right? If somebody ended up taking call it a PLC that has certain permission levels and policies associated with it and swapped it, and all of a sudden we see a laptop connected behind, no longer will that laptop need the same level of access that the PLC used to have. So when we talk about visibility, we don't stop at the SIM level. We allow the accounts to really understand what's connected behind each CP and use that for better decision-making in their network. One of the things we see most often, because of the nature of the device ecosystem, there's a lot of devices in our deployments that are actually primarily cellular routers. I mean, not necessarily embedded LTE modem, but they use companies such as Cisco, GE, 4RF, Semtech that connect other devices into the network. And very early on, this became a very big deal for OneLayer, because when we talk about visibility, we don't stop at the SIM level. It's crucial to understand, of course, this is the number of CPEs that I have in my network, but from the customer point of view, they want to know, well, what's behind that CPE? Is this an automated guided vehicle? Is this a PLC, a laptop? And oftentimes that's crucial for their authentication, because they really want to understand that what's connected behind the router is what they had in mind, right? If somebody ended up taking call it a PLC that has certain permission levels and policies associated with it and swapped it, and all of a sudden we see a laptop connected behind, no longer will that laptop need the same level of access that the PLC used to have. So when we talk about visibility, we don't stop at the SIM level. We allow the accounts to really understand what's connected behind each CP and use that for better decision-making in their network. The type of alerts that we see in these networks are not necessarily cellular specific. They're true for all of OT. People obviously want to be able to track any anomalous traffic pattern, whether they're part of the data path or in the cellular signaling that's in the network. But there definitely are some, call it specific cellular threats that we've been asked to monitor. To name a few, we've had customers asking us to be able to detect IMEI spoofing. So if you have a device sort of pretending to be another device, how we're able to detect that in real time. We've had customers asking us sometimes to detect SIM swap events. If somebody was able to take a SIM and put it in another device and they don't have the ability to lock a SIM to a specific device, so just to be able to monitor that and provide them an alert when this happens. Something that is very critical relates to the CPEs that we discussed before. Oftentimes we have people asking us to detect any unauthorized access via some rogue device that might connect into one of the CPEs. So this is probably one of our most common use cases for security. People say, even if I trust the SIM that I have inside that router, if something was to be disconnected from that particular CP and now there's another device there, how can we detect that in real time and quarantine that device in the meantime, or give it a certain restriction, like maybe it's not supposed to communicate with certain destinations or use certain protocols. So everything that relates to what's happening behind the router, I would say that's a very common ask for environments that have both cellular and devices connected via CPEs in their network. Not necessarily what I expected originally when started working with companies like Evergy, but became very true, and now it's something that we do for all of our utility customers, is that there are a lot of needs that are beyond standard security. So of course, companies like Evergy and SouthernLink, they want us to help them enhance their security posture, but there's more to that. Today with Evergy, I would say that the number one use case that we're working on together is actually enabling them to add devices to their network in a more efficient way, secured way, automatic way. A lot of times working with big companies like Ericsson and Nokia, the solutions, like we stated before, were sort of designed with operators in the back of their head, right? Like, hey, here's a core that traditionally would serve someone like Verizon or AT&T that are cellular experts. What we see with Evergy is that many times you have people that need to use the services of the cellular network, not necessarily being cellular experts. And when they have a batch of 1,000 SIMs arrive and they need to register it to the network, they look at partners like ourselves to be able to support them in that process, to be able to add more devices to the network more efficiently, to make sure everything is activated appropriately, getting the right profile. So we do a lot of that, a lot of monitoring the devices are connecting as they should, and support them in the process of onboarding new devices. The name of our product is actually the OneLayer Bridge. And the reason we call our solution Bridge is exactly because what you just stated. We tend to bridge between the world of Ericsson and Nokia and the world of firewall solutions or network access control solutions like Palo Alto, Fortinet, or Cisco. I think the key capability of OneLayer is that we've developed a solution that can really collect information from Ericsson and Nokia in real time, track all that, analyze it, parse it, and then make sure that this information can reach those other solutions that were not necessarily designed in mind to integrate with Ericsson and Nokia, but rather have tons of capabilities and need to work with an entire stack of IT and OT protocols. So we are able to bridge that gap, right, and make sure that we gather the data from Ericsson and Nokia and allow it to reach in an efficient way, in a way that's easier for organizations, to all of these other security platforms. That's one of our most common use cases. The things that we'll see is indeed to allow for more integrations. So making sure that, if you have someone that is used to setting up rules in a firewall, they don't necessarily want to set up rules for cellular devices and a different set of rules for OT devices. They want the rules to be the same regardless of what the transport layer is, right? So everything that has to do with integrations, making sure that standard asset management tool, that MDMs, network access controls, firewalls, all of these tools can operate appropriately in a cellular environment, I think is very much one of the next frontier. Another thing that we hear a lot from customers is to simplify the process of adding devices to the network. We tend to call it zero-touch onboarding, as in to allow the user to maybe, just be able to take a SIM, place it inside a device, and a solution like OneLayer will automatically identify what is it that you're trying to connect. Oh, you're trying to connect a CPE of that nature. That is the right APN for you. That is the right quality of service that you need. That is the right policy that needs to be associated with that device. So everything that has to do with making the process of adding devices to the network easier, faster, seamless, right? This whole process, I think, is key and will allow organization to really scale faster, because you don't want to slow the network down every time you want to add the devices. You want it to be very, very fast so that you can add tons of devices at once. So that is a very, very key for a lot of the enterprises we work with.